What's good, ladies and gentlemen? But before we start off with the intro, there's a lot of stuff that's taking place on the planet because the energy right now is at unstable heights, meaning that, the great majority of these psychological operations is going to create afflictional turmoil for the great majority of people on the planet because they're already talking about the bunkers. Everything is basically being telegraphed in real time. So that's why you have to understand that everything is pretty much, is pretty much premeditated. Every Black Swan event has a premeditated energy. Everything has a divine blueprint, whether it's from the cosmos, whether it's interconnected to the simulation. And tonight, we're going to dive real deep into what's going to be taking place in the future. We're going to go through the whole timeline, right? There's a lot of stuff I'm going to be showing you guys tonight to let you know that there's an algorithmic system that is interfacing, with the simulated reality. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna put the rice bowls in the chat, and I'm gonna play this intro.
Bill 101.
Be Frankie. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix.
Yo, what's good, ladies and gentlemen? We are back with another transmission. So if you're new to the channel, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. Because maybe about 80% of the people on the channel that watch this channel, they're not subscribed to the channel. And it's very imperative that you subscribe to the channel and keep up with the great majority of everything that's taking place on the planet right now, because the grand finale stage has basically been set, right? The grand finale stage has officially been set. And I'm going to prove it to you as we get through the transmission. Because one thing you got to understand is that they got to give you the truth, but you got to be able to have the ability to find it, right? Because a lot of people they deviate from forums. You can't just get, the great majority of your information from the multimedia news. You cannot trust the news. You can only use the news as a catalyst, as a modern day hieroglyph. So sometimes you got to go into the forums. Sometimes you got to connect with elders. Sometimes you got to read certain books. So there's a lot of stuff I'm going to be showing you in real time that lets you know that we're basically in that tribulation period. We're in that great purification period. Everything that, pretty much when me and Rod Hayes been saying, for the last 3 years, everything is starting to come to fruition, right? Because it's interconnected to the agenda for 2030, which is interfacing with the New World Order system, which is a biometric technocratic agenda, which is the blueprint for totalitarian feudalism, right? That's what it's all about. Totalitarian feudalism, to where they take away your rights because they want you to interface with biometric technology, right? Hence, when they came out with the hantavirus, right? Because the hantavirus in itself is where they want you to interface with Neuralink and things of that nature. And I'm going to be demonstrating that as we get through the transmission. Because as I broke down in the video last week, I was talking about the word Hanta. When you break down the etymological roots of the word Hanta in Sanskrit, it means Natha. Natha means overlord or lord of the universe, which is basically the embodiment of the spirit of Melchizedek, right? Because all that information basically coincides with the fact they was talking about the full disclosure of extraterrestrial entities, because the hantavirus is being used as a mechanism to take you away from your higher self, your God self, right? Because that's what the nacha means. It means your Christ self, right? Because it's basically revered in ancient Hinduism, because Krishna is the outer manifestation of Shiva, and Shiva means seven, and Shiva is basically in alignment with the philosophy of Natha in ancient Sanskrit, right? So this form of pestilence that they're trying to perpetuate, which is asymmetrical biochemical warfare, what they're basically trying to do is to take you away from your God self. That's why you about to have full disclosure, because the aliens that they're talking about, you are that, because that's why they want you to interface with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, phones and everything in your house, all these EMF wave frequencies, it keeps you bounded to the planet, right? Just like hypothetically speaking, when you're talking about it, when you watch it, when he was talking about they all float, right? Because in order to float outside the firmament, get outside the dome, you got to be as light as a feather, right? You got to be energetically balanced. You got to be light as a feather. That's the only way you can escape the firmament. You got to be as light as a feather. But like I said, all cryogenic, psychotronic nanotechnology that is coming from westernized society, Elon Musk and artificial intelligence, is keeping you bound to the planet. They don't want you to be light as a feather. They don't want you to be floating like the It said. They all float. That's why they've been propagating the red balloons, you know, all throughout the media. Because like what I tell you about the red balloons on the Economist magazine, a red balloon is a clock with no numbers, because it's basically telling you something. A clock and a calendar basically are synonymous. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get to the presentation, because I don't want to ruin everything from you for you guys tonight. Because like I said, man, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be taking place, because they're attacking people. They're unaliving scientists. David Wilcock, who was a UFOologist, he was unalived. They trying to silence people. They demonetizing people like myself. Because like I said, you gotta, when you're trying to uh put a stoppage on the vibration of truth, you have to be very meticulous about that situation, because they can't unalive everybody. We're gonna be like, oh, we're gonna demonetize B Dell. We're gonna try to hit his pockets. We thought he was gonna end up in a sex scandal, but that didn't work, so we're gonna demonetize his page. Another thing, they'd be like, well, such and such is in the game bank, and let's just set up how he gets unalive. So they can set up scenarios like that in a simulation, because they know who you are by way of pattern recognition, because it's interconnected to your phones, right? That's why they don't want you to basically become your true authentic self. And mind you, they did demonetize me right after I put out the video, when I was talking about the Great Reset and I was talking about the Black nobility. But everybody put the rice bowls in the chat. We finna get straight to it. And talking about it's inauthentic. Every time I drop knowledge, I spit that shit off the top of my head. I don't have an artificial intelligence based page, right? So if you want to support the channel, anyhow, still, since I got demonetized, I got the Cash App if you want to donate to the channel, and then I also got the my book in the link in the chat. The link to my book is in the chat. Hold on for a second, guys. Make sure. All right. So the stage is set, ladies and gentlemen. The motherfucking stage is set. What I'm showing you on this cover is basically about, pretty much everything that's going to be taking place within the energy extraction matrix. The stage is set. And it's one of those things where people, they cannot fathom what's taking place on the planet in real time because they're too busy trying to be entertained, right? You want to be confined to a certain mentality. You don't want to pay attention to reality. You don't want to understand that we living in motherfucking revelations that they speak of in the Bible. They want to run away from that, right? That's why you seeing so much, chaos in the media, so much chaos in the rap industry, and so much, chaos in politics, because it's a form of escapism. But you cannot run away from the Great Awakening period. You can't run away. Everybody in the chat put, you can't run away from the Great Awakening period. You can't run away from that shit because, like I said, during the times of the sun cycle, the sun is going to expose everything. Everything is about the energy of basically being against the race of the sun, right? So we finna get straight to it. Now, this is why I said you got to go on forums. Now, the reason why I say you got to go on forums is because when you look at these forums, it gives like a pretty much a blueprint and a deep dive of what they're not telling you on the other side of the geopolitical apparatus when you're talking about other countries and other things of that nature, like what's taking place in Russia and China and Iran, because that's basically like the underground market of what's taking place politically. So what you're looking at is all these talking points because it's basically talking about the plan. This is basically the blueprint and the plan for the World War III alien invasion and things of that nature, which is why they coming out with full disclosure while at the same time we beefing with Iran. So Israel breaks ceasefire and strikes Iran. Trump responds with B-2 bunker busters on nuclear sites. Iran hits all Gulf oil fields in United States bases, blocks Hormuz and the Nadib. And the oil prices skyrocket, blackouts in Africa and third world countries. United States sends three aircraft carriers, at least two sunk by Iran, Russia, China using suicide tactics. United States tries to amphibious invasions. First fails the massive casualties. Second attempt succeeds. Oil field seized, advance halts, United States Civil War begins, anti-war. See, we're basically at the brink of this right here. The United States Civil War, right? Because before we have a war, it's gonna be a civil war on American soil. Because it's basically emulating the same energy as far as the movie Leave the World Behind. You're gonna have a war because you're gonna have rebellion against the government first in America, right? So it could be one of those things. That's why I was talking about the year of 2020, no, the year 2027 being the Great Separation, right? And the reason that is because it's a separation of pillars, the pillar of severity and mercy, which creates separation, right? The separation of the dualistic energy extraction matrix. So when you're talking about the great separation, this is when you're talking about the chosen ones versus the NPCs that I talk about in my book. Link is in the chat. 2027 is the great separation period, right? Because you got to purge everything out. And then it's kind of like a game of musical chairs. That's what's taking place in the simulation. But only the chosen ones is going to last. It's only the chosen ones is going to be sitting in that motherfucking throne in that chair at the end of the day. Because like I said, energy expands and returns to itself. What goes around comes around. So the tables is basically turning in the cosmos. So this is when you're talking about the cosmic pendulum. But moving forward, back into the transmission, you got Turkey betrays NATO. So this is basically the blueprint. Everybody screenshot this. This is the blueprint for what's going to be taking place from now all the way up until 2030. Because at the bottom of the script, it says the Dome of the Rock destroyed. And that's supposed to happen in the year of 2043. So that's another reason why you got to watch the last video that I put out. 2030 to 2043. Because 2043 is when the motherfucking dome is going to crack open. That's why I ain't going to run the rest of the transmission for you. Because that so-called alien entity that they showed you is not an extraterrestrial. It is the conscious energy of the star Polaris, which is the galactic center. That's why I said in the last transmission, the true spiritual sun is outside the dome. The sun and the moon inside the simulation, yeah, they're physical, celestial megastructures, but they're basically emulations of what's taking place in the magnetosphere, which is the fifth dimension. The mental plane is basically the home of the star Polaris. That is basically the true light, the true frequency of consciousness, right? Which is the G, which is the gnosis. The gnosis, the unknown, the Amen, the hidden one. The hidden one is the hidden sun outside the dome. That's what they don't want you to know about. So that's why I said that energy that's coming from that star Polaris is giving off the Christ energy. But we're going to get to it as we get to the transmission. Now, this is why I said everything that's taking place operates on a cylindrical pattern. Because what you see taking place, like I said, the Economist magazine, this is why you see all the red balloons on the background. You see all the red balloons because, like I said, a red balloon is a clock with no numbers, right? So it's basically you looking at a calendar. Time and calendars are basically synonymous because they basically foretell what's going to be taking place in the future, right? So when you're looking at this picture, the perception of art imitates reality. Right now, you got March. We're not in March, but we're just going to start at the top of January, right? You got artificial intelligence, and then you got the boat right here, which is a representation of the fall of maritime law, right? Because we're going back into tribal law. Hence, you got the boy lover symbol at the top of the flag, which is a Canaanite symbol on the ship. So that means that Canaanite culture, which basically interfaces with maritime law, is basically collapsing. That's what that represents in the beginning of the year. Because when 2026 is the great purification, and to purify something is to purge all the old things. Maritime law is basically the Piscean age of darkness, which represents the old world. So that's why you see this boat right here, right? And he's holding a life jacket, but can't nothing save your motherfucking ass because it's the end of the Canaanite system. Because, like I said, the 6,000 years is up. And then you got the guy over in I think is in Venezuela, Maduro. He's right here. And then in March you got Erica Kirk, and then April you got talking about the flock cameras and I think it's drone technology, drone invasions, what they was talking about. And then in May, right here at the bottom, you got the inoculation needle, right? Which is basically a representation of what's going to be taking place with the Hanta. We finna get into it. Put the rice bowls in the chat. And then at the bottom, right here, it's got the soccer player. So this is just my opinion. Something could take place during the time of the soccer because right here is a balloon that basically is in between the demarcation of July and June. So it could be some type of checkpoint or a checkpoint of a psychological operation that could take place on July and June. And then as you segue into the July gas prices is going to skyrocket. And this is why you see the collapse of the dollar. And then you got in August, you got the inoculation again. So it could be a pandemic during this time period. And then you have Israel, and I don't know who this guy is. You got Bibi Netanyahu, and you got North Korea. And this is taking place in October. So in October, this is just based on my own independent research. I think something could take place in October. Something could take place in October, which is basically the true embodiment of what they call the October surprise. The October surprise is basically the Red October, the October surprise. So something can take place, and also considering the fact that 2026 is also a 10-year. And then you got to understand something. They have a lot of people as far as like Israeli intelligence that puts out a lot of 3D memes and to basically propagate what's going to be taking place in the future. So if you type in on YouTube iPad Goat, watch iPad Goat 1 and 2. It's a small video. It's like a simulated video, and it gives you like nuggets of what's going to be taking place in the future. So it shows you the Islamic regime being taken down right here. When you go to 304 on the video, 304 on the video, it shows you like an Islamic temple being attacked. And then 304 in Gematria, in Jewish Gematria, is Muhammad. And then, like I said, the perception of our imitation reality. So they put a lot of this stuff. Everything is pretty much, a psychological operation. Everything is premeditated, right? And then 304, the day of 2026, is October 31st, 2026. Yeah. And the United States is the traditionally day celebrated as Halloween, but public, yeah. So that's why I said when you go to the Economist magazine, you can see right here in real time. Let me blow it up for you guys. Go over some. Right here, you got October. You got right here in October, and then you got Bibi Netanyahu, and then you got China, and I think that's Vlad. That looks like Vlad Putin. So something could be taking place right here. It could basically signify a world war. World War III, the beginning points of it, as far as, being infiltrated on American soil, that can take place in October. Or it can take place in November. As you can see, the brain interfacing with a remote control. Because remember, as I was telling y'all, I kept telling y'all, maritime law is gaining jurisdiction through the Uniform Commercial Code. Maritime law is right here, which represents the boat. It's gaining jurisdiction through the Uniform Commercial Code because artificial intelligence is going to interface with humans while they got the brain right here. And then you got war taking place right here. So that's going to be the collapse of the financial market. So it's telling you right now in real time what's going to be taking place on the timeline. Everything is in your motherfucking face, but you got to read the signs and symbols. Everything's in your face. Right? And then this guy put on Twitter. I think this tweet was put out because, like I said, a lot of these people, they're not prophets. They're not none of that. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these people, they're basically interfacing with, inside government and things of that nature. And they're basically being told to put these things on social media because, like I said, again, they got to tell you the truth, right? Whether it's in a form of fiction, whether it's in the form of, satire, whatever, in a book, a video game, they're going to tell you every time. So it tells you in this tweet, some of you guys are all right. Don't be alive on May 15, 2026 when I set off the global pandemic, which shall come to be referred by the struggling, tormented survivors as the event. Now, for those of you who've been following my YouTube channel, I think it was 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, I have a video called The Event. I have a video. Somebody look in my videos. I have a video called The Event, and they demonetized that video. I put that video, as soon as I put it up, an hour later, they turned the video yellow. And then they try to copyright strike the video to where I wasn't able to get limited, monetization from it. I have a video called The Event. I kid you not. And then after everything I'm talking about, look who's on the front of the cover called The Event that I put on there. Look at the thumbnail. You can't make this up, ladies and gentlemen. Put the rice bowls in the chat. And then there's another tweet. You got I Am Soothsayer. I talked about this in my reel the other day. It says that 2023 Corona ended in 2026. Hantavirus was created. And this tweet came out in 2022. So, but again, in order to facilitate this energy of totalitarian feudalism to implement a one world government that is a technocracy, in order to do that, they got to give you the truth, because that means that you basically are consenting to the afflictions of the matrix, because when you participate in fraud, you cannot claim injury to the system. Your ass can't claim injury to something that they've been showing you the whole time. That's why they don't reap the benefits of that so-called karma. But the only karma they get is their time running out. That's the only thing they get. That's why everything is being shaken up in government. So I'm gonna read this right here. This is George Bush Sr., and he said this in August 2nd, 1990. He says that we have before us the opportunity to forge ourselves for the future generations a new world order, a world where the conduct of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of the nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders, George Bush. They've been saying this because, like I said, the New World Order, all they say, Agenda for 2030 is the New World, is basically a dressed up New World Order. That's all it is. That's what they're basically saying. They ain't gonna tell you, hey, we're going to a New World Order. They're just telling you it's Agenda for 2030. Agenda for 2030 is the saying New World Order with Louis Vuitton on. That's all it is. That's all it is. It ain't nothing but a dressed up New World Order. That's what the Agenda for 2030 is. Because, like I said, that's why they tell you in the World Economic Forum and also at the Trilateral Commission and the Bilderberg Group in their manifesto, they talk about how you will own nothing and be happy. Right? Remember they told you that? You will own nothing and be happy. Because it's basically in alignment with the movie Paradise on Hulu. You're gonna live in a synthetic environment. You're gonna eat fake food. Kind of like the same thing on the movie Snowpiercer. Watch the movie Snowpiercer. No money, because like I said, they want you to interface with artificial intelligence. You're basically gonna be the biological computer. Right? You're basically gonna be the biological computer. That's what they want. So you won't be able to move around, no flights, none of that. No car, you're gonna be in your house, you're gonna be in a box, right? Because like I said, the apex of how to feed off the energy and the data of people is to keep them boxed in. That's why I said the most intrinsic resource in the simulation is data. Human data is the most intrinsic resource. How you do it? Artificial intelligence. That's how you do it with the smart cities. And now, as we get into asymmetrical biochemical warfare, the 33-day cruise sparks a Hanta's frenzy. Notice you see the number 33. They're telling you by way of numerology, this is a Freemasonic ritual. This is nothing but Freemasonry in real time, ladies and gentlemen. And it led up, everything operates in a trinity. Everything has a trinity principle, right? But what they do is they invert the Trinity principle and they put dark draconian magic on it. So you got 3 people unalived after hantavirus outbreak hits cruise ship. Put the rice bowls in the chat. And now remember, I was telling you guys, when you break down the etymology of the word hanta and you and you activate the anagram in Sanskrit, Natha means what? Lord, protector, refuge, master, right? They don't want you to become your higher self. That's what this pestilence is all about, right? That's what this biochemical warfare is all about. They're trying to disconnect you from your higher self, right? Because we're in the sun cycle. Because like I said, it says right here, it refers to the supreme, the divine, especially Shiva. Krishna is the outer manifestation of Shiva. Shiva means 7. Because when you activate all 7 chakras, you become the master. You become Jesus. You become Isus. You become Melchizedek. You become the Anunnaki. You become the Superman. You become the motherfucking X-Man. Whatever you want to be, you become that because you embody all energies. That's what dodecahedron is. Ether embodies everything because it's basically that intelligent, but you got to be in alignment to reap the benefits of that energy, right? So, hantavirus or hanta is an anagram for the word natha in Sanskrit, which means master, protector, Lord. Shiva, you. They're trying to keep you away from you, because when you have a form of pestilence, that's when you can basically quarantine them inside of a smart city to lock down your DNA with the technology. That's what it's all about. It's all about locking down the Christ. They don't want you to activate the Christ consciousness, right? Because you are that Christ that they speak about in the Bible. You are the El Qadir, the green one. So that's why it tells you right here, officials race to find 40 passengers who left cruise ship with hantavirus. And this, like I said, this is how you know it's a psychological operation. Donald Trump is a Scottish Rite Freemason. He's a white hat. So he's playing both sides. He's basically showing you a synthetic energy of false light by giving you a synthetic golden age. That's why King Charles, what did they do? King Charles, he basically gave him the throne. He disrespected King Charles in front of him because they basically telling you that all this shit is basically over. So Donald Trump is playing both sides. But he's resurrecting the matriarch, but he's resurrecting the matriarch because he has to give it back to us. Right? That's what it's all about. So then right here it says RFK laid off the cruise ship sanitation inspectors prior to hantavirus outbreak, right? So he already knew. Like I said, the Trump administration is playing both sides. They're playing both sides. It then tells you right here, breaking. Health expert says the United States might not get immediate access to the hantavirus surveillance data and contact tracing information because it is no longer a member of the World Health Organization. Ladies and gentlemen, look at that. And then it says right here verbatim, it has been assumed that the hantavirus is contagious only if someone is in close contact with someone who is having symptoms. Experts now suggest it is possible it may be contagious than they thought. 2 in Maryland, 6 in Atlanta, 4 Californians are having symptoms, right? And then, like I said, they've been telling you the whole time. That's why I said motherfuckers just don't read. Motherfuckers just be at the mall buying stuff, not read nothing on the books, the tags. They just walking down the aisle, just throwing shit in a motherfucking grocery basket and don't even know that they've been telling your ass the whole time it's on the back of the damn stuff that you in the shower with. Telling you whole time, right? But like I said, that's how the matrix works. It's, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like coding. Like if anybody knows anything about source coding or whatever, everything has to have the code has to be in alignment with a certain, with a certain codex. So everything has to interface. Everything has to have a process and everything has to have a logistical order. Because if it's out of order, the magic is basically not going to work. Everything is all about order and structure. Just as wicked as dark magic is, it has structure to it. It has a process. It has principles. Yes, it's wicked and dirty or whatever, but it still got structure. Everything in the simulation, everything in the cosmos got structure, right? Now, this is where we get into Neuralink, right? Because like I said, Neuralink is trying to mimic the neuromelanin. The neuromelanin is the brain and central nervous system melanin, right? That activates your nervous system, which is basically the true embodiment of what? Heaven and hell. Heaven and hell is determined by your nervous system. Heaven and hell is determined by your nervous system. So that's what it's all about. The whole Hanta situation is really all about trying to make you interface with biometric technology. That's what it's all about. And get the lights up, ladies and gentlemen. You know what I'm saying? We got almost 2,000 in the building. Share the video because we got to get these types of videos out. Now, like I said, it's all about the smart cities. Hence, something could, possibly take place in LA. And the reason I say that is because they want the smart cities built up around 2028. 2028, that's when they want to start building the smart cities. Get out of California. You got to get out of California. Why? And the reason I say that is because I think some of the scientists that came up missing, they also was talking about underground demolition that can take place in LA that can activate those tectonic plates, right? Which could basically create sedimentary rock formation and activate, an earthquake, right? Because that's where they got that Capitol building that Larry Silverstein he had just bought. Yep. So they want to build a smart cities. And then, like I said, just like in the haunted virus, they said 6 in Atlanta. See what I'm saying? This is basically another way to introduce you to the smart cities. Because it says the city of Atlanta is testing out a new form of policing with the use of AI powered camera surveillance. It is first testing grounds covers a predominantly black neighborhood. See, they know you're going to be activated, so they want to pay attention to your ass. Man, put the rice bowls in the chat. I'm telling you right now, we're in the time of the so-called, what they call the Christ energy. We're in that time right now. We're basically in that time where we tap into our ancestral intelligence. The fuck some artificial intelligence. We're tapping into our ancestral intelligence. Because remember, your ancestors, they're basically interfacing with the sun because the ancient souls of Atlantis, the ancient souls of Tartaria, the ancient souls of Kemet, the ancient souls of the land of Mu, the ancient souls of the Aztecs, the Mayans, and the Olmecs, when they died, they soul, their etheric body went into the sun. And now they're being projected right back down on the planet in the form of a solar flare, which is a neutrino. So that creates the ancestral intelligence through you. So when you activate that ancestral intelligence, what happens? You become what? What happens? You become what? The Christ. That's why the Hanta and artificial intelligence, technocratic government, it all basically it all coincides. That's what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. And it tells you right here, maybe you don't, hold on, it's kind of, all right. Maybe you don't know this, but Apple just made a deal with them people, and the new iPhones are expected to include Israeli chips. Funny how many people probably won't even pay attention to who's listening, right? Like I said, they're telling you right now. I told you. Everything's taking place right now in real time. So before we get into that, I'm gonna play a video for you before we get to the alien stuff. So everybody put the rice bowls in the chat. All right. Everybody put the rice bowls in the chat.
These humans?
Not for most things. People are like, wow, this is a bit scary. It's completely new territory.
I mean, will we still need humans?
Not for most things. We'll decide.
Yeah. Overall, I think there's quite a bit of abdication of responsibility around like what are we going to do as people's jobs start being taken fairly aggressively. Luckily, there's a massive population drop coming, so maybe everything is just fate and it's going to work out okay.
You see what she said? Listen to what she said, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to play it back. Listen to what she just said. Remember when the same thing with Elon Musk he did at his TED Talk? He said, with these with the draconian juice, we're going to eliminate, more than, half of the population. And then motherfuckers in the crowd was clapping, right? So she knows something. So like I said, they always got to tell you, but they got to laugh it off. They got to make it a game. They got to make it satire for views or whatever, but they're telling you the truth in real time, right? They're telling you the truth in real time.
But I feel like we might get work out okay as people's jobs, abdication of responsibility. yeah, overall, I think there's quite a bit of abdication of responsibility around like what are we going to do as people's jobs start being taken fairly aggressively. Luckily, there's a massive population drop coming, so
Man,
maybe everything is just fate and it's going to work out okay.
but how do you gonna do it though? Right? Because not only you just do it with the so-called Hanta, you know how you else you do it? Because it can also create an energy of neurological zombification, right? Neurological zombification. Because once you get those so-called, the draconian juice that comes with it, once we have a so-called shutdown again, once they try to make people get that draconian juice, what happens is that creates that nanotechnology that basically fries the neural synapses, right? And it has the ability to rewire your neurological modifications. So with that being said, that means that the two frontal lobes of your brain is going to dematerialize because of the energy that's coming from the nanotechnology, which is basically a form of psychotronic magic, right? They're using psychotronic magic to create zombification, right? That's where you get your motor cortex skills from, the two frontal lobes of the brain, right? All that stuff basically interfaces. I'm gonna play the video.
But I feel like we might get like very, very, very good AI across every pillar of art before there aren't any more people to make art.
So you wrote, "We appreciate power."
Torture this atomic analogy. You got the sense that people like Oppenheimer or Einstein were aware of the gravity of what was happening, and through the crucible of war, maybe made some decisions they might not have made otherwise. In this environment, I don't think Altman, Karp, Thiel was asked, should the human race, flourish and continue to exist? And he took like a 5-second pause, like, yeah, let me think about that for a second.
That's a tough one there, yeah.
You've heard about it in countless movies and shows.
I'm not going to the bunker. Sir, not going to the bunker.
A top secret bunker outfitted to protect the president from major security threats. Now in real life. As the controversy continues,
I told you, the perception of our imitates reality. They telling you the whole time. Around
President Trump's demolition of the East Wing of the White House to make way for a new grand ballroom, there's fresh talk about what's happening underground. That bunker was bulldozed along with the rest of the East Wing. NBC News can report that it will be rebuilt and upgraded, according to one former White House official and two sources familiar with the East Wing renovations. A White House spokesman declined to comment in response to questions about a new presidential bunker.
But as declassified documents reveal more about these underground facilities, they raise as many questions as they answer. How many exist? What's their true purpose? And are there connections between them that we're not being told about? So let's dig into the evidence. Let's start with what we know for certain. America has several massive underground facilities that have been acknowledged by the government. Perhaps the most famous is the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD, which is buried inside Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado.
How many times, the people who've been following this channel, how many times me and Rod, we've been telling y'all about Cheyenne Mountain. We've been telling y'all about Raven Rock Mountain, right? A lot of this stuff that, they're putting in the multimedia news, they trying to make it seem like, oh, they just found this stuff. We've been talking about this, but y'all was trying to castigate chosen ones as conspiracy theories, basically, right? But like I said, we in a time right now where the conspiracy theories are, basically up by 21,000, right? Nah, conspiracy theorists, the chosen ones, we up by 144,000. We up by 144,000 because what we did was we transmuted the energy of the tinfoil hat into a crown of knowledge. We turned our tinfoil hat into a crown of knowledge. Now, what I'm saying, they like, oh, everybody got excuses now about what's taking place. Can't nobody call you crazy no more. Can't nobody call you crazy. Everything in real time is basically, taking place. So I'm going to keep playing the video, ladies and gentlemen.
constructed in the 1960s, this underground complex was designed to withstand a direct nuclear strike, and it's built in the middle of the country on purpose. The facility consists of 15 three-story buildings mounted on springs that would absorb the shock of a nuclear blast. These buildings sit inside a massive cavern carved from solid granite. During the height of the Cold War, over 1,800 personnel worked inside the mountain on a daily basis. Can you imagine? Inside of a mountain, 1,800 people? Monitoring for potential Soviet attacks. That's what they did all day long. While NORAD's operations have partially relocated to Peterson Air Force Base, the Cheyenne Mountain Complex remains operational as an alternative command center, ready to activate in moments of crisis. Less than 30 miles from Washington, D.C. sits another underground marvel, the Raven Rock Mountain Complex, sometimes called Site R, or the Underground Pentagon. Built inside a mountain near the Pennsylvania-Maryland border, this 650,000 square foot facility serves as an emergency operations center for the Department of Defense. Now, construction began in earnest back in 1951, and like the NORAD complex, it was designed to withstand a nuclear apocalypse. So only the elites would survive. You and I would be vaporized. Now, inside Raven Rock are all the necessities for running military operations: communication centers, conference rooms, and a self-contained power system. The facility can support about 1,400 people for an extended period of time.
Saying, like, one thing about what's taking place on the planet right now, a lot of people, like I said, they try to perceive things. Oh, this is fake. It ain't nothing getting ready to happen. If they wasn't putting all this time and energy and money into all these projects, all these underground bunkers, you think they just doing that shit for no reason? You think they just doing that for no reason? Y'all think you're gonna get up and go to work and you're gonna that's gonna be your life forever? No, shit getting ready to change, right? Because in order to, transition into, the hereafter, what's got to be taking place is that, you just got to be energetically balanced during this time period. Because, what I'm saying, anything can basically happen. Anything can basically happen. So like I said, they doing all this shit. They not doing it for no reason. They spending thousands, millions of dollars, underground bunkers, because something's getting ready to take place. We're basically at the apex of the Great Reset. So why ain't your pastor talking to y'all about this? If we got Christians in the building, why ain't your pastor putting you up on game? Because what? A church is supposed to be a storehouse, right? He ain't stocking up resources. He's not galvanizing the homeless and putting them up for shelter. You know what I'm saying? So, because like I said, because your pastor is in bed with those people. They in bed with the New World Order. They in bed with the Agenda for 2030. That's what you got to understand. Your pastor, he sold his tongue for a tax exemption, right? Your pastor sold his tongue for a tax exemption because the church and the state is not separate. But now the church is going to be interfacing with artificial intelligence and technocratic governments. You know what I'm saying? You're going to have a robotic pastor pork chop. You know what I'm saying? That shit going to be crazy. So it's one of those things where, you can't, everything in real time is taking place, and people just got to understand what's taking place on the planet and read the room. Just read the room. When you looking at social media, when you watching TV, that is your modern day hieroglyphics, right? Hieroglyphics is nothing but ancient algorithms. That was the algorithm during that timeline. That was basically what was basically taking place. Now you're tapped into the futuristic timeline, but you see it as entertainment. This is hieroglyphics. You watching a movie. That movie ain't meant for you. Oh, I love it's my favorite. I love that movie. Nah, it's hieroglyphics. It's got a message in it. It's a codex to it. Everything got a codex. If everything has a gematria code, everything has a code to it. Everything has a message. Ain't nothing coincidental.
Allowing military leadership to maintain command and control, even if Washington, D.C. is totally destroyed. Though many details remain classified, we know that Raven Rock continues to be maintained and upgraded as part of America's continuity of government plans in the case that President of the United States and His entire cabinet is wiped away. Who would run things? It would be the military. Perhaps even more critical to government survival is Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center in Virginia. This underground complex would serve as the evacuation site for the highest level of civilian and military.
And the reason why, because you got the CIA that is in the DMV area. See, you got to understand why they put certain locations at, right? The CIA is, I think it's the CIA. That organization, they have a connection to Mount Weather.
Officials in case of a national disaster, who would house the president, house the Supreme Court, and other key leadership. Mount Weather is operated by FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and features underground offices, has full dormitories, a full hospital. And above ground, the 434-acre facility includes training areas, a fire.
And remember, Donald Trump, why FEMA is important, why he said that? Because when Donald Trump, he has qualified immunity through the continuity of government. So that means that he can activate FEMA through military law. So that means that he controls everything when all this shit go down. So that means that he's the commander in chief. When everything goes down, that's why they keep telling people he's the last president. That's because he has qualified immunity through the continuity of government. As you see the collapse of maritime law to introduce a surveillance governmental golden age.
Station and even an entire police force. What's particularly interesting about Mount Weather is how it's designed to function as a genuine underground city. It has reservoirs for fresh water, power plant with multiple backup generators, advanced air filtration systems. There are even dormitories that could house hundreds of officials. And during the 9/11 attacks, guess what? Many congressional leaders were evacuated to Mount Weather, demonstrating its continued importance in emergency planning. One lesser-known facility is the Greenbrier Bunker in West Virginia, a place that I know well. I spent a lot of time in West Virginia as a young reporter in Bluefield, West Virginia. For decades, this massive bunker lay hidden beneath the luxurious Greenbrier Resort, unknown to the public, until it was exposed by the Washington Post in 1992. It was built during the Eisenhower administration, and its 112,000 square foot facility was intended to house all 535 members of Congress in the event of a nuclear war. Perhaps most fascinating was its cover. The facility was hidden right in plain sight, and that's my point. How many of these exist that are sitting in plain sight? It was designed and disguised as an exhibition hall and maintenance area for the resort. Government staff posed as TV repairmen, regularly maintaining the bunker's equipment while pretending to be servicing the hotel's televisions. After its exposure, the bunker was decommissioned and is now open for tours, one of the few such facilities accessible to the public. These known facilities represent just the tip of the iceberg. We all know about these.
That's why I keep telling y'all gotta watch the season of the TV show on Hulu called Paradise, right? Paradise is really just showing you what is getting ready to come. That's all it's showing you. It's showing you everything for what is to come.
Declassified documents suggest dozens of similar installations were constructed across the United States, many of which remain operational and classified. What's particularly noteworthy is how these aren't merely bunkers. They're fully functioning underground cities designed for long-term occupation and governance. The question is, how many more exist that we have no idea about? If underground cities exist, then logically, there must be ways to reach them quickly, especially in emergencies. This brings us to one of the most persistent claims about America's underground infrastructure, the secret subway systems that are connecting important government facilities all across the United States, never having to jump on the interstate highway system and sit in traffic. We know for certain that Washington, D.C. has an official underground transportation system that's used by government officials.
Regarding this project that are frankly of top secret nature.
Adding, we're making necessary security enhancements as part of the construction. The space was called the Presidential Emergency Operations Center, or PEOC.
And where's the PEOC?
For your information, miss, it's the one room in the house that no one knows the location of.
WikiLeaks says it's under the East Wing.
And though it's a constant presence in pop culture, it's not really talked about publicly. Its mere existence seldom confirmed by officials and seen rarely in White House photos. Captured every once in a while, though. You can see former Vice President Dick Cheney and Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice in the bunker on 9/11, along with other top White House officials. President George W. Bush was there later, according to photos from the National Archives, before his address to the nation. We're not talking about the Situation Room, which is available 24/7 and used regularly for secure meetings. According to the White House Historical Association, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt ordered the construction of the secret underground bunker in 1941 in case of emergency.
See, look, 1941. They've been doing this shit. They've been planning, pretty much prepping since 1941, right?
After the attack on Pearl Harbor. The East Wing was expanded on top. Fast forward 80 years, President Trump went down there during his first term in June of 2020 as protests erupted near the White House in response to the killing of George Floyd. The president confirming he went, but disputed, reporting it was due to the protests.
And I went down during the day, and I was there for a tiny, little short period of time, and it was much more for an inspection.
You might remember this moment in the aftermath. Now virtually no details are known about the plans for this new and improved bunker and what it will look like in the end. For now, the president has taken quite an interest in the project, and the administration says it hopes it will be completed by the time his term ends in 2029.
You heard what she said, by 2029. That's why they want to build a bunker, right? Because I think that's going to be the beginning points when they hit that reset button for the agenda for 2030. It only makes sense for it to go that way. So we're going to get right back to the transmission. All right. Everybody put the rice bowls in the chat. All right, we back at it. So now all this, like I said, it coincides with artificial intelligence technology. When you're talking about the Israeli chips, which can also be considered as the emulation of the mark of the beast, right? Because the mark of the beast is not only subjected to just, artificial intelligence technology, it's also interfacing with a mentality. So a lot of people, you could have the mark of the beast just as you being a black woman and you got a motherfucking blonde wig on your head. That's the mark of the beast right there, right? Because it's not all about, interfacing with technology, and it's just sometimes it's just really you just, conforming to an ideology that's not, acclimated to your essence. And you know what I'm saying? Because you're not, coming from that true matriarchal energy. So, and then now we get into this. This is where we get into the UFO stuff. This is when we get into the Anunian Thurgy, who is the Anunnaki, the Anunian Thurgy, who is the who controls the blueprint of the universe, which is the Cosmicon mythograph. We're finna get into it. Now, UFO files released. It says Donald Trump, he tweeted, "As for my promise to you, the Department of War has released the first stretch of the UFO UFAP files to the public for their review and study. The people can decide for themselves what the hell is going on." Now, with me, being a decoder and tapped into metaphysics and quantum physics and other things of that nature, I'm gonna tell you what's going on. Because like I said, you got to understand the algorithm, because when they telling you one thing, they're telling you like 5 other things, but it's only like one true meaning. Is one true meaning to certain things that they tell you, but they have like 5 other meanings for it. That's the confusion. But I'm gonna tell you the true meaning of what's taking place when it comes to this full disclosure. Now, it tells you right here, shocking news, FBI files. We just heard that from Trump. Now, it says right here, the United States Congresswoman draws UFO comparison to biblical angels, right? Now, some people, their perception is they have a misconception about this drawing that's taking place. Now, this is also declassified when it comes that they put out in the CIA documentation in the UFO files. White House releases photo of UFO that is strikingly similar to the spaceship used to send Superman to Earth in 1978 blockbuster movie. Now, look, I need you to look at this sigil right here. Now, remember, I was telling y'all, you got to read the room. You got to understand the algorithm. Remember, they came out with the movie Michael. Remember, I was telling you that Michael is Melchizedek, but everything has an energy signature. Everything has a symbol, an energy signature, or a sigil. Now, like I said, you got to be able to read the room. The last video I was talking about Michael Jackson, I was telling you about the 47 prime of Euclid, because this represents the order of Melchizedek, which is your higher self. This is also a representation of the Christ. So this declassified entity that they're trying to, perceive as a spaceship is actually the true personification of the star Polaris. The true spiritual sun that's outside the dome is actually the sigil of Melchizedek that operates off fractions of light, because fractions of light is angels of light is angles of light. And that angle of light operates at 90-degree angles and interfaces with you with the neutrinos. That's what I was talking about as far as like a true biological upgrade, DNA enhancement by way of the activation of the sun, considering the fact that we're in the last sun cycle and we're in solar cycle 25. So what they're basically trying to show you, this is the sigil of Melchizedek. That's all it is, right? And notice, like I said, everything is an algorithm, because if you understand their language, they cannot lie to you no more. They can't give you a bunch of bullshit and sweep it under the rug like you don't know nothing and just, because that's one thing about people. Motherfuckers is caught up into professionalism. Just because a motherfucker got on a suit and tie and they got on a business outfit and, you're a businessman or a businesswoman, just because they look like that don't mean that they have real knowledge or that they're really intelligent. Or if they doing something, that's going to benefit you, because a lot of them people who dress like that be devils. So with that being said, so when it comes to the number 47, right, everything has an algorithm. So when you're looking at this symbol of the declassified UFO, it's showing you this sigil, and then that looks like the sigil of Melchizedek, from my opinion. It looks like the 47 prime of Euclid, because the 47 prime of Euclid is equated to man, woman, and child. That creates resurrection through a Trinity principle, right? So the 47, and then this guy, he died at 47 years old today. Come on now. That's why I said they're telling you without telling you, but you got to understand the hieroglyphics. Everything is a code. Why, what I'm saying, they push so many certain things as number 47, the number 33, because the number 33 and 47, that's the 47 prime of Euclid. That's you once you tap in. That's why they coming out with the hantavirus, and then they coming out with stuff like this. You got all this taking place in the ocean. Evidence of a giant squid discovered. Bodacious beast is bigger than the school bus with the eyes the size of larger pizza. So, as you transition, through this, simulation, there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to be taking place as far as like, because sedimentary rock formation, when you have the opening of certain caverns of the planet, you're going to get new, you're going to see new animals that's not naturally, I wouldn't say naturally a part of our ecological kingdom, but you're going to see animals that you've never seen before that that was basically during the time of ancient Atlantis or ancient Tartaria, or just during the time when you had a fifth dimensional civilization. So a lot of times, a lot of these entities and these animals that you've seen in the ancient times, they're going to resurface, and they talk about that in the book of Enoch. Now, it says right here, this is like I said, you got to go to forums. If you can't screenshot this, I get a lot of information from forums because they tell you the dark side of what's taking place in what's taking place overseas. So I went to the forum on Reddit, and it talks about this article in that the Royal UK, which is a big website. This just came out in 2026. The Queen seen by her subjects in a different form. The Queen has ruled for longer than any monarch in British history, becoming much loved and respected figure across the globe. Her extraordinary reign has seen her travel more widely than any other monarch, undertaking many historic overseas visits, known for her sense of duty and her devotion to a life of service. She has been an important figurehead for the UK and the Commonwealth during the times of enormous social change. Earlier this week, Queen was seen by thousands of people in a form they're not acquainted with. We seek to reassure the public that the Queen is still their queen and remains respected and loved figure and always known. Yeah, this is where it goes. Yes, while she may not be a human, that's what they say right here. While she may not be human, she is a devoted leader and monarch. Like I said, they got to tell you. They said this in the Royal UK in 2016. I got this off a forum. While she may not be human, she is a devoted leader and a monarch. And then you got King Charles. Since we're talking about the royals, like I said, you're looking at a transition of government. The fall of maritime law is the fall of the royal empire, right? The fall of the crown. So, how King Charles charmed the U.S. while taking digs up to Trump, right? So this is basically nothing but a transition of power. That's what you're seeing taking place right now. A transition of power. So the first speech in May 1991, Queen Elizabeth. Yeah. So with that being said, when you have a transition of government, during a time of a transition of government, it has to go through a transitional phase economically. So the transitional plan outlined in pages 71 through 89 of the ruling describes a replacement revenue system, no income tax, no payroll tax, a flat consumption tax exemption, exempting food, medicine, housing, education. See, that's why I was saying, like, that's why Rod, he said the only reason that King Charles visited Trump because it's a representation of a transition of power, because you're looking at the folding of the three city states. There ain't no motherfucking corporation no more. Remember, I was telling you guys, Uniform Commercial Code, Title 28, Section 3002, page 86, third paragraph. The United States, it was a corporation. There ain't no corporation no more. Why? Because the crown has been dismantled. Because the seal of Queen Elizabeth off Buckingham Palace, it was removed, right? I think it was during the time when she died or after she died. After she died, the crown was removed. And then the Pope, he unlocked the keys at the Vatican, at the necropolis, those 5 portals that unlock the galactic center that interfaces with the true star Polaris. What they basically trying to show you as an extraterrestrial entities, but what they're basically showing you is the true spiritual sun. But that's not a real emulation of it. What they're basically showing you is the true spiritual sun. So when you got the falling of the 3 city states in real time, right? So when you had the falling of the 3 city states, you have to go back into a new republic to where you live off the law of the land, which is Commonwealth law. Not Commonwealth, but common law. So that's why they try to give you your shit back in a form of monetary gain. So that they're basically telling you guys, so the IRS basically has 83 days left. 83 days. And Donald Trump, he put this tweet out. So he's telling you, you know what I'm saying, like in real time, that, by way of, totalitarianism, he's going to create his golden age through his dictatorship. That's what this is all about. It's all about control. And then you got Netanyahu. Oh yeah, I forgot to show you guys the video of the entity before we get through the rest of the transmission and we get back to some questions or whatever, because I'm gonna do some Q&A at the end. Everybody put the rice bowls in the chat. All right. Now, remember the sigil that I showed you. Now, this looks just like the sigil of Melchizedek. and the signet of Melchizedek is from my independent research. I think that represents the true spiritual sun, which is the star Polaris. Because the true spiritual sun, you can only be the most high. You know what I'm saying? That's why I'm saying when you're talking about the Bible, it's talking about God's son, Jesus, right? So I think that the sun inside the simulation is basically a microcosmic aspect of this celestial body that they call an extraterrestrial entity. That's what I think that's what's going on. They're showing you the star Polaris outside the dome. That's what this is. This is not an alien. It is a conscious celestial entity that created all physical things in existence. They created all the mechos. What is a mecho? A mecho is a magnetospheric, externally collapsing object, right? Because this star contains quarks and leptons. Quarks and leptons takes you to a different space and time. Taking you to a different space and time by way of a black hole. That's what a mecho is. That's what the true spiritual sun is, because a black hole is Ophiuchus. Ophiuchus is Jesus, and Jesus is Melchizedek. Melchizedek is the true star Polaris, because that's why you got to go back to the galactic center. And then when you look at a Masonic tracing board, you got the two pillars of severity and mercy, Jack and Boaz, the sun and the moon. But when you go through the middle, that is your hero's journey. They're showing you the Christ. That's all they basically showing you. They just showed you Christ. That's what they're basically showing you. They're showing you Christ, and that's the true spiritual sun that's outside the dome. That's what they're basically showing you. Just look at a Masonic tracing board. Because when you go, because the stairs is not going up to the motherfucking sun. It's not going up to the motherfucking moon. The stairs is going up the middle. The middle is the galactic center. The galactic center is the North Star Polaris, what I'm showing you on the screen. And they try to tell you it's an extraterrestrial. They're telling you you're in a time of Christ. Remember, I told you that the Sphinx was in alignment with the star Regulus, and it happens every 24,000 years, because every 24,000 years is interfacing with the precessional circle of the equinox that is cultivated by the North Star Polaris, because the last moon cycle was being controlled by the Alpha Draconis star system. Then when you have the shift, you go to the star Polaris. Man, I don't know. Hey, I don't know how motherfuckers is not getting this. They telling you in real time, bro. They telling you. They telling you. And that's why they, like I said, they demonetized my page, because like I said, there's no other way. There's no way you can't get me with no sex scandal. You know, excuse my language, you know, I done had enough, you know, pussy in my lifetime to where I ain't got to take nothing from nobody. You know what I'm saying? I was born balanced. Hold on, where's my, okay. Where'd my presentation go? Hold on, guys. This is the last transmission. Definitely didn't mean to put this up. Well, I didn't really have that many more slides left, but I guess I can go to the Q&A because I can't find my... Okay, here it go. Boom. So that looks just like that what I show you in the video looks just like this symbol right here. But like I said, man, you know, they know that I have the ability to put two and two together, and that's why they demonetize my shit. Because I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, because like I said, there's different strokes for different folks, you know, depending on your personality and your character. So they gonna try to hit you every which way just based on your personality traits. They know I got custody of my son and stuff, and they know what they do. But you got this going on. Then, like I said, remember I told you, as you get to the simulation, it's gonna get harder. Right now, the simulation is on all-star mode. No, superstar mode. Just like when you're playing the game, you got to go up and level from rookie to Hall of Fame. But like I said, we're in superstar Hall of Fame mode, whatever the case may be. Because that this is how you know They're going to put agents of chaos in front of you, implants. Now, when you look at the nomenclature title of this individual, this racist white man, his name is Chud the Builder. Now, when you look at his name, Builder, right, that is interconnected to Freemasonry, because a builder is an architect, and an architect is a merchant that's interconnected to those Freemasonic principles that basically is in collaboration with whatever religion, because he propagates himself as a ultra nationalist Christian, which is basically a racist Christian, basically, just like the great majority of people in the KKK, because a lot of people don't even know that the KKK is a Christian organization, but that's a different transmission. But Chud the Builder today, shot a man who attacked him outside a courthouse in Clarksville. And Clarksville is like an hour and 30 minutes away from me. I'm surprised he ain't came to my city. And my city is the second biggest city in Indiana. So I'm pretty sure he's gonna make his way here if depending on what's going on with this situation. But he accidentally grazed himself. But yeah, he shot a man. Because he been going on the internet talking about, oh, you chimping out, basically, antagonizing black people so they can attack him so he can shoot him, just like what took place. So this is why I said the matrix is going to get harder. The simulation is going to get harder. And the reason I say that is because they're going to put implants of chaos in front of you to make you crash out. So when you say chimping out, he's basically saying, hey, I want you to crash out so I can take your life. Because I know that the planet is going back and they put me out here to antagonize black people. This is a ritual. So if this ritual is complete, you know what I'm saying? Maybe I get something off the back end and become rich and things of that, and rich and famous or whatever. Everything that you see taking place with him, this is nothing but a ritual, bro. That's all it is. That's all it is. They're using him as a chaos agent. So just like I said, they use different forms of chaos agents. They don't just put people like him in front of you to antagonize you. You got sexual chaos agents. Sometimes, I hear stories. They have put out, they give a woman or a man HIV/AIDS of a different demographic, and they make them have sex. They tell them, they pay them to go up, make them have sex with black people and spread the disease. So like I said, they got implants of chaos around you. They're going to hit you from by antagonizing you like Chud the Builder. They're going to hit you from a sexual standpoint. They're going to hit you on all levels. They're going to put agents of chaos because, like I said, they know that, the planet is going back into its original balance. And in order to do that, you got to siphon the energy of the people that it basically interfaces with. And then that hantavirus is really nothing but a psychological operation to distract you from what's taking place with this. So the Disney cruise ship staffers among 28 detained in child exploitation investigation, right? All this is connected to the Epstein files, right? Pay attention to the signs and symbols. Notice this happened while at the same time this is happening. While at the same time all this is happening. And all this is happening. That's what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to get to some Q&A. All right, hold on. Everybody, all right, we're going to get to some Q&A. Everybody put your questions in the chat. Put the rice bowls, questions, or whatever in the chat. And if I don't get to your questions tonight, follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is bdell1014. Yeah, I'm appealing it, but I think they're gonna try to, I don't know, man, because I really don't get it. There's accounts out here. A lot of those channels, it's nothing but an artificial intelligence channel, and it's still monetized. So I think I just maybe got caught up. At first, I was like, man, maybe this is just something was automated, artificial intelligence or whatever. But I think this is kind of like planned because I show my face in all my content. I don't make, I show my face in all my content and I use my actual voice. I don't mass produce artificial intelligence content. But I appealed it. They didn't even look at my appeal video. But like I said, the Matrix, they understand you. They're going to try to hit you. They're going to try to manipulate certain situations to basically distract you from your message. Because they consider, like I said, since they can't hit me like, oh, we're going to put a girl in front of them. Hey, go talk to him. You can't do that with me. You can't do that with me. I ain't no thief. I don't rape. I don't do none of that shit. I didn't grow up fucked up. None of that. People who know me know where I come from, and they know my people. Right? So the only way to do it is like, let's demonetize his channel and hope that he doesn't have the courage or the propensity to make videos no more. Wrong as fuck. I don't care if my channel's monetized or not. I'm still gonna come on here and extrapolate the knowledge. You know what I'm saying? We still gonna, talk that talk because, the truth is way beyond the concept of money. Money is a artificial structure. It's an artificial concept. Money is not real, right? Because considering the fact the money hasn't been backed by a natural resource since 1934, right? Because the money is interconnected to the Federal Reserve, which controls the corporation, right? So the fall of the corporation is the fall of the Canaanite. So with that being said, maybe it could be a good reason, notice you see, but you said demonizing. I just now noticing that. But yeah, I get what you're saying though. But yeah, they gonna try to hit you where it hurts, but I'm gonna appeal it. I got like another few days before they look at some of the other stuff that I did. But yeah, I'm gonna keep y'all updated on that. But yeah, back to this. When do you think the Great Solar Flash will actually happen? Now, just based on my independent research, I think the Great Solar Flash is going to happen in 2043 because a lot of people don't know that the Great Solar Flash is actually the Phoenix event. And the Phoenix event represents resurrection, right? The Phoenix rising from the ashes, which is basically a form of rebirth. So rebirth and resurrection basically coincides with the North Star Polaris. Like I said, when you look at a Masonic tracing board, when you look at the pillars of Jack and Boaz, there's no stairs going to the sun. There's no stairs going to the moon. The stairs is going to the middle way because the true star Polaris, the North Star, is actually the true Christ. And that's when the firmament is going to break open, the activation of the star Polaris that interfaces with the bandwidth and the mentality of the chosen ones, which are the 144,000. So the 144,000, if they're on the same mental frequency, you're able to interface with the North Star to activate the Christ, and that North Star is what breaks open the firmament. So that's why during the time of 2043, this is just based on my independent research and also in alignment with Dr. Malachi Z. York's research. He says that you're going to have the open vortex. It goes from 1943 all the way up until 2043. 2043 is a 9-year, which represents completion. So the inception of that interface transition where they basically jump time. When you jump time, that's called time dilation. So the inception of what happened in 1943 during the time of the Philadelphia experiment, these naval intelligence officers, they try to make a naval intelligence ship disappear, and they did, and it ended up in Montauk, New York, which is, where you get the beginning points of Stranger Things. That's where that concept came from. But the boat ended up from Philadelphia up into Montauk. So from 1943, you had an energetic rip in the universe where it created a vortex of energy that pierces the firmament. So from 1943, 53, 63, all the way up until 2043. Now, this is another thing you got to understand, because right before you have 2043, you got 2033. 2033 is also the end point of when you have Uranus being in conjunction with Gemini. That represents Tahuti Thoth Melchizedek, which is the Christ. So all those basically, basically line up together. So that pretty much lines up together. The blue star Kachina. I think the blue star Kachina. One thing you gotta understand about a blue star. Blue, when you look at the color spectrum, it's the most intrinsic vibration on the color spectrum. It's the hottest, right? It's the hottest color, the blue light. So because when you look at as far as like the blue star Kachina, some people said that they seen it when they seen Three Eye Atlas, and some people said that they seen the red star Kachina when they seen Three Eye Atlas. But I think it's going to be something where it's got to be like a global event to where everybody sees it. I don't think it's going to be subjected to a certain geographical area. I think it's going to be an event that everybody sees. And for those who don't understand what the blue star Kachina is, it's a part of the Hopi prophecy. Is the 6G the hantavirus? No. The hantavirus is a form of parasitical invasion. Parasites have the ability to interface with your biofield, and this is what I'm saying as far as like it creates a frequency inversion within your sine wave, so it basically flips the chakra system upside down, or it basically locks up your chakra system. So a lot of the viruses that they talk about is nothing but parasitical invasion that's coming from the genetically modified foods and everything that's coming from the Food and Drug Administration. So a lot of that stuff has nanotechnology, and that technology unravels, different time periods when you're on certain energetic points of the planet. So the 6G is nothing but the 6G, 5G. 6G and 5G is being used as a catalyst to basically travel through the EMF wave frequencies to fry those nanotechnologies inside your body that's coming from the food and the drugs. Because a lot of those drugs is nothing but psychotropic medicines. Psychotropic medicine has a lot of aluminum and all types of metals in them. That's what it's all about. So, yeah, that's what it's all about. And Hanta in Hebrew means, fake. That's a fact. And he said salute to I forgot his brother Sanchez. Salute to brother Sanchez. He had said this the other day. He said Hanta in Hebrew means scam and fake, a lie. Right? Salute to that brother. Okay. Get to some more questions. Yeah, there's another guy that he was unalive. I'm not sure how he died. Brandon Clark. Everything's a ritual. And I think he played for Memphis, I believe. And one thing you got to understand about Memphis, they trying to build those data centers there, right? Because that's an intrinsic geographical location, Memphis. That is the true Egypt, and that's why Elon Musk, he wants to build that data center there, because what they're also trying to do in real time, they're trying to patent telepathy, right? They're trying to put a patent on telepathy. Because if that's how you know. If it didn't exist, why are you putting a motherfucking patent on it? Right? If it didn't exist, why are you putting a patent on it? That's because your telepathic abilities is basically magnetized to the star Polaris. As it gets hotter on the planet, your telepathic abilities are going to get activated even more. Because the sun is nothing but the personification of electromagnetism. but it depends on what vibration you on. Because some people can't activate that natural electricity. But going back into Brendan Clark, yeah, everything they do is basically a ritual. And you notice the guy, I think he played for Memphis, the Memphis Grizzlies. But Elon Musk, he's building that data center there. They want to steal your thoughts. So, is it fair to say that the arrival of Melchizedek will be the demise? Yes, yep. That's what you call circling the square, right? And the reason I say that is because where you become the true spiritual embodiment of your Zohar body that basically deviates from your gematria self, your matrix self, right? This physical motherfucking vessel. So you not only is it going to be the demise of, the devils that control the world, is going to be the demise of your inner devils, right? You got to get rid of them first. Because, what I'm saying, the biggest devil of all is your lower self. You got to face yourself before you go face the enemy. So, like I said, but once you go through the transitional steps by going from neophyte, adept to master, that's when you tap into your Melchizedek energy, which is your Christ. Yeah, I like when people come in the comments trying to be smart. But Jesus, if you want to be, honest, the letter J wasn't invented until the 1600s. In the ancient esoterics, the G and the J was interchangeable. So when you're talking about saying Jesus, you're really saying Jesus. Jesus is equated to gas. And what is that gas? That's ether. So when you're saying Jesus, you're really saying ether. Who is Melchizedek? Who is Jesus? Who is Christ? So you can't, so shit, how you gonna be mad at your motherfucking self? If you mad at Jesus? Because last time I checked, Psalms 82, verse 6, were you a microcosm or the macrocosm? Right? Ye are gods. So yeah, Jesus and Jesus. Ether is a form of gas because a lot of people negate the fact that because people don't understand science. You got, three different states of matter. You got solids, liquids, and you got gases, right? So ether doesn't just come in an etheric form. It has a corporeal and a non-corporeal form. It can be physical. Physical ether is looking at me right now. This melanin, this activated carbon. And that's another thing, though. A lot of people try to say, "Oh, I got melanin, so I'm gonna ascend." Nigga, you got melanin, but you ain't activate your neuromelanin. You ain't activate that neuromelanin that interfaces with your fascia because you got the mentality of a devil. So a lot of people out here, they might got the carbon coding, but they still got the frequency and the mindset of the six ether albinoid beast man. A lot of people ain't gonna make it because of the mindset. Yep, they got hue melanin. Hue melanin is what creates eukaryotic cells. Eukaryotic cells is when you have spliced DNA. And when you have spliced DNA, that basically dismantles the thymus gland. The thymus gland, when you're talking about the Canaanite, it basically depletes out from the years 6 to 13. That's why they hate the number 13. That's another reason why they hate the number 13. Because the thymus gland is what activates the heart chakra, right? They don't have a thymus gland. It's gone by the ages 6 to 13. It's gone. That's why they don't have compassion. They devils. When you get into the keys of Enoch, it talks about the cursed seed of Labana. Cursed seed of Labana is the Amorite. The Amorite is the Canaanite. The Flugeride, the Tamahu in ancient Kemetic spirituality. These are the same motherfuckers in different stories. A lot of people just not reading the room. And your pastor ain't gonna tell you the truth. It be the pastors, but they propagate in their church. They be telling motherfuckers, they be telling black people they Hamites, and he be telling that they Gentiles. There's pastors out here getting paid millions of dollars, bro, millions of dollars, and he's getting paid telling his congregation that they Hamites and that they Gentiles. You see what I'm saying? That's how you know motherfuckers is on the wrong side of history. They don't know shit. Just because your ass went to seminary school and you got the edification from Eurocentric society, it doesn't mean that you a fucking scholar. You ain't no scholar, nigga. You a sellout. Yeah, people be like, you know what I'm saying? Like people, man, that's why I don't like the church. I don't fuck with church. Yeah, fuck the church. Yeah. Nobody care about the church. Because if you really talk about the church, nigga, you are really the true temple. You are really the personification of the church, right? You are the true personification of the church. Because when you look at a cathedral, it contains what? Cathodes. Cathodes have quarks and leptons. Last time I checked, that is 6 electrons, 6 protons, 6 neutrons when it's activated. That's you. That's the carbonated man and the woman, right? So that's why, you know, that when you look at a lot of these churches, you are actually the true personification of the Christ. But like I said, Eurocentric Westernized society that caters to the matrix, they always want you to look outside of yourself, right? Read the room. That's why, you know what I'm saying, I don't agree with nothing that Nature Boy does or whatever. He was the, you know, the furthest thing from a Messianic figure. The furthest thing. You know what I'm saying? He was just somebody who tapped into spirituality and he collaborated with a mental illness. But that's neither, you know, I ain't trying to speak on the man, whatever. He did what he did, whatever. But they're showing you in the algorithm the reason why they put that Hulu documentary out, because they're telling you we're in the time of the Christ. So in order to demonize it, it's kind of like a slap in the face. Like, we telling them that the Christ energy here, but let's put this motherfucking Nature Boy on here. Let's you know, let's make it, let's kind of let's kind of make it satire. Let's kind of, you know, make it seem like those people are crazy. Even though our time is up, we just gonna propagate it. That's what they basically doing. They're telling you right now we're in the Christ energy. And and to be honest, if you want to be 100, when you're talking about a Messianic figure is not only subjected to a man. From, you know, if it, because, you know, just by way of, you know, to be rational and logical, if Earth is a feminine planet, that means that the only entity, biological entity on the planet, the most powerful one that can activate the matriarch is a woman. So that means, you know, just based on my independent research, your Messiah will have to be a woman, right? Because the woman, her DNA has the ability to interface with the planet. And with her interfacing with the planet, how you going to activate the seven thunders if you ain't got the woman becoming a Christ, right? Because like I said, the Christ represents you. You're the true church. The church is the vessel, the body, the temple, the activation of the chakras. So once black women activate those chakras, oh, it's over. It's over. Because that's when the moon is going to fall, because the moon is not going to pull on their energy. That's what moonfall is. Because when the black woman tap into her true power and she activates those prokaryotic cells that interfaces with the intelligence of the sun and align with the star Polaris, what you think is going to happen? But, you know, that's why the system works so hard to keep black women in a state of degradation. And the reason that is because they want to keep you over sexualized, because your sexual energy is what controls the great majority of the weather. Right? So if you can control the weather, you can control the magnetosphere, right? That means that you have the ability to bring intelligence down. That's why I keep telling people, man, like, ain't shit gonna change, you know what I'm saying, until black women, you know what I'm saying, really tap in. Really tap in. I'm talking about real tap in. Really tap in. You know, and the men, we got to clean it up too. You know? Because, you know, if and it's 2026, if you still out here being a street nigga, bless your heart. Bless your motherfucking heart if you still trying to be a street nigga in 2026 and they got all this biometric technology out here. Nigga, they got ants and everything that can scan your frequency and they can have x-ray vision and see what the fuck you got in your pocket and then airdrop it to the police station. And you wonder what, and you talking about, man, John snitched on me. Nigga, read the room, nigga. We in artificial intelligence is taking over. And you out here trying to be a dope boy. You niggas is retarded. Nigga, it's 2026 and you still trying to be in the streets and they got all this technology out here. At this moment of time, motherfuckers is just slow. Just slow. And they swear somebody snitched on them. Swear somebody told on them. And you know, and this is how you know we in the end times, bro, because because it's too much going on out here, and people they're mentally scrambled. They you know what I'm saying, they ain't got a sense of self-direction. Like they can't read the room. You know what I'm saying? They go to a party with the Galactic Federation and everybody in there got on spacesuits and shit, but you gotta be the simple-minded motherfucker to come in there with a throwback jersey. Read the room. And we ain't on that. That's the old world. We in spacesuits now. Motherfuckers can't read the room, but that's what's gonna save you. You gotta have the ability to read the room. You gotta have the ability to read the room. Because that's how you activate your intuition, right? That's how you activate your telepathic abilities. That's how you activate psychometry and clairvoyance. That's where that comes from, right? One thing that I like to do when I'm just chilling outside, sitting on the porch or whatever, I think of two colors. I just think of two random colors real fast. And those colors, and I'd be like, if it ain't a car that came down my street yet, I just automatically train my mind into thinking it's the two colors I said, and one of those cars is gonna come up. That's another way to where your octave vibration of your voice can manifest something in the future to where it brings it in the present. That's how you do stuff like that. That's another way to train the brain, right? Because how you gonna activate the memory bank? Because a lot of people don't know that you actually have a lot of water around your pineal gland. There's a reservoir of water around the pineal gland, and then you got these chromatic piezoelectrical crystals around the brain that interfaces with the water, which stimulates the pineal gland, the third eye, what they call it. That's how you become a seer, right? You gotta have the ability to see. You don't see with your motherfucking eyes. You either see with your heart or you see with that third eye, right? Because a lot of people don't understand that sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is sit the fuck down. Because when you sit down, you're present. And when you're present, you stop time. That's 0-point energy fields, right? That's the same thing. Like when you just sit down and be still and just pay attention, that's the same thing as far as like, when Neo, which is he represented the neocortex of the brain once it's activated. When he was slowing down in the Matrix, doing all that, he was slowing down time because he was present. The Matrix wasn't able to fuck with him because he was being present. You can see beyond the illusion when you're present. You can bend the spoon when you're present. Pay attention to what's taking place right now. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching this video. If you got some other questions or whatever, just put them in the Instagram. Instagram me at bdale1014. Find me on bdale1014. And like I said, man, they doing all types of stuff with my YouTube channel, man. I don't know if I'm gonna have to make another one or whatever, because I don't know, because it's one of those things where if they try to destabilize the channel, because a lot of times when you get away from these programs or whatever, they don't push your videos in the algorithm to where it gives off the false perception that nobody's watching your videos or whatever. Yeah, we coming to get the motherfucking truth. The chosen ones, we over here. You know what I'm saying? They gonna pull up. And if you see any change on the channel, just know that they messing with this page. Just know that, right? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching this video. End of transmission.
I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. Karma's gonna get to you and then you'll have a chariot with only one less friend. Now I had distant folks that are looking to my eyes to understand the wisdom he's given and his wealth from the skies. So thanks for this meal that I'm about to receive, and thank you for my health and all the good memories. Thanks for the courage taken on another day when I used to not believe, but now I know about grace. Stay away from the fire cause the flames does burn. Go with your gut feeling. When it's wrong you learn. For every one step I take, the Lord takes two. And do unto others if you want it done unto you. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. This a completion, the selfish Proto-Grecian, Amerindian, Phoenician. I'm the last of the Mohicans, the bastard of the land of Pan, Melanin, Accretion. And we just trying to get back to the fact that we was kings and queens of our land before the avalanche seized it. I live on Turtle Island with the rest of the diseased. Better than the medicine for 7 different treatments. He's trying to ride away but end up getting seasick. The sleeping for my words like Braille and they're awakened with the penmanship of Hindu script written in them vacant monastery honorary payments to the prototype. Tomorrow's only a day away, but nothing happens overnight. The fuck's wrong with going left when you know it's right? Biting off more than I can chew, that's an overbite. Black on black crime is like watching 2 soldiers fight when all along they was on the same page. History. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land.
Look. That's just doing something. I was doing a video, that's why I kept calling. I think they like freaked. I was feeling weird the whole live, so I had to keep taking pauses. I had to keep taking pauses because, like I said, man, I don't know if they projecting like frequencies on the thing, but that shit felt weird. That's why at first I was about to hang up, be done with the live, but I went through it.
Kept pausing.